This is my fourth video reflection for my Digital Society class at the Miami Valley School. This time, I'd like to talk about addiction to text, the Diffie-Hellman public key exchange, and my thoughts about the class in general. So, a while back, our teacher, Mrs. Case, sent us an article titled Why We're All Addicted to Text, Twitter, and Google by Susan Weinschenk. And it has some pretty interesting information because I never, well, the title sentence is "The culprit is dopamine." And it says that dopamine was discovered in 1958 by a couple of scientists at the National Heart Institute of Sweden. However, it is critical in all sorts of brain functions, including thinking, moving, sleeping, mood, attention, motivation, seeking, and reward. That's what kind of made me, that's what kind of surprised me, because I always heard that dopamine was involved in pleasure, not trying to find something that will bring you pleasure. And in the second paragraph, it talks about it right here. You may have heard that dopamine controls the pleasure systems of the brain. That dopamine makes you feel enjoyment, pleasure, and therefore motivates you to seek out certain behaviors such as food, sex, and drugs. But it's the other way around. Dopamine is all about seeking. So usually, and what causes pleasure is there we go, opioid. I didn't want to say opium just because that didn't sound right. Anyway, liking is the opioid. Wanting is dopamine. And usually dopamine wins out over opioid because we don't want to just sit there in a stone stupor while we starve to death. So we need dopamine to make us want to get things like food, which brings us pleasure, or sex, which bring us both pleasure and children. And then there's drugs, which bring us an intense amount of opioid, and our body wants it so much that it will produce dopamine for that more than anything else, which obviously makes drugs very dangerous. That about takes up my time on that. Now I'd like to talk about the Diffie-Hellman public key exchange, which we had Mr. Lakatos come in and show us a video about that. And that was, I had heard about that before. We went over it in Geek Immersion my sophomore year, and that was really interesting because you keep the private information to yourself and to the the person on the other line, while also keeping it private from the person in between. And that's such an ingenious way of doing it that the way they described it was with colors, where each person had a private color, but they publicly agreed on a shared color that the person in the middle would get, but then the person in the middle would not get their private colors. However, when they mixed in their private colors, they became the same color. Therefore, they both got the same information, which is that's totally cool to me. I mean, the fact that somebody like came up with that, I couldn't have done that in. Maybe I could. I don't know. I guess I never really tried. Maybe I could have done it. I have never thought of that before. That's really impressive. Even if it was two guys that thought of it. I mean, that's still amazing. And lastly, I just want to talk about how I'm feeling about the class right now and how I think it's going. I just want to be honest. I feel like a lot of the stuff we're covering is just kind of common sense, like the whole privacy thing. It's not that I'm uninterested in it. It's just that a lot of it feels like, should you let bad people follow you on Facebook? Obviously, the answer is no. You shouldn't let strangers follow you on Facebook, and you shouldn't follow strangers on Facebook. It's just the principle of the thing. You're supposed to follow friends and have friends follow you. and not accept friend requests from strangers. And we all know that. And I don't like putting it in layman's terms like this, because really it's not. But we all know what to do on the internet. I hope everybody in that class, okay, I hope that the things that people have said, nobody's hearing a lot of new things from. Because if they're hearing it new, or if it's new to them that they shouldn't let strangers follow them on Facebook and Twitter and stuff, that's a problem. That's a problem that they've been on it for so long. And it's just news to them that they shouldn't be letting people do that. Um, I have high hopes for the class in the future, because I think we can really cover some interesting things, and everybody in the class could really enjoy themselves with what we learn. And I'm excited to see where it goes. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.